Planet of the Apes is the newest installment in this Planet of the Apes franchise and the fourth movie in this sort of reboot series of Planet of the Apes movies. This movie takes place about 300 years after the events of War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, at this point, apes are very much the dominant species of Earth. Humans have basically been reduced to these feral creatures, basically. They scavenge, they can't speak, they're pretty primal because of the virus at this point. This movie mainly revolves around this ape named Noah. He's part of this sort of hawk clan of apes. They raise these eagles, they raise these birds of prey to do their hunting, their fishing, wherever they need to live. One day though, his clan is invaded by another group of apes that serve this new leader of apes. His name is Proximus Caesar. They storm into his clan, they destroy pretty much everything. Now Noah's going on this adventure to find his clan and save them, and along the way he encounters an orangutan named Raka and a human girl named May, who still has the ability to talk. This was, without question, one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I absolutely loved the trilogy of Planet of the Apes movies we got before this, a sort of reboot series. For my money, honestly, that's one of the best movie trilogies ever made. I mean, it's not talked about enough, but I really believe it is. It was an amazing story that completely made sense into how the apes became the dominant species and how the human race just completely fell apart. Andy Serkis as Caesar, I think that's one of the best movie characters ever. But naturally, I did think as a trilogy, it was set in stone, it was done, it had perfectly done its job in telling the story of the rise of the apes and the fall of the humans. So admittedly, I was definitely surprised to hear we were going to get another Planet of the Apes movie, one that was going to serve as a continuation of the story, because I wasn't sure if there was much of a story to still be told. But regardless, I had become a fan of that franchise with that trilogy, and I was interested to see where else they could go. And after seeing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I am still excited to see where this franchise can continue to go, because I think it's once again setting us up for something that could be really good. Getting into the characters of this movie, okay, Owen Teague as Noah, I thought he was a great protagonist. Because in his case, for him it's very much a coming-of-age story. You know, he's just part of this clan of apes, you know, trying to figure out his place in the world, his place with them. He kind of comes off as like that teenager kind of vibe, like he just like, you know, is living his life, trying to find his place, and then something really bad happens, and now he's kind of forced to grow up very, very quickly. And where I really want to give credit not just to him, but to all the actors that are doing the motion capture for the apes, I thought they did a really good job at expressing how the apes would feel. Like, yeah, these are apes that can talk and they express emotion, but they still find a way to channel how an ape would respond to certain situations. It never at any point felt like humans just playing apes and acting human. They still found a way to act like these more intelligent apes, and that's a credit that has been carried over from that trilogy into now. Also, from a visual standpoint, this movie looks brilliant. I mean, people have compared it to having Avatar level special effects, and I don't think that's an inaccurate statement. I mean, everything in the movie just looks beautiful. I already mentioned the motion capture for the apes. I mean, there are moments, you look at the apes, you look at the setting, and you're just like, this looks real to me. And what I also appreciate that this movie did is it clearly does illustrate that this does take place many, many years after what happened in the previous Planet of the Apes movies. You know, at this point, we are clearly seeing just how much the apes have taken control over the earth. I mean, you see buildings that are just covered in moss, you see landscapes and ships and everything that's just completely fallen apart, you see old baseball stadiums that hardly even look like such a thing anymore. It had a very post-apocalyptic kind of look to it, and I appreciated that. But also, what I appreciate what this movie does, it has some very intense moments, it has some very serious moments, not necessarily just with the action, although the action in this movie is very, very good when it wants to be, but it's more so just in the character moments that we get. It could be conversations between certain characters, it could be certain investigations into situations that need to be discovered. There are a lot of moments that the movie knew when to hold the tension, and it absolutely grips you in and it sucks you into that. As far as other characters in this movie go, I want to touch on May the human for a second. I actually did enjoy her character, because what I really like seeing with her character and with Noah's in particular, it's in this moment where it's like, yeah, they've heard the stories of how apes and humans used to live side by side, and they've come to a point where they both kind of need each other to accomplish something. And what I like is throughout the movie, they never really know entirely if they can trust one another, if one's gonna betray the other, or turn the other over, or whatever could happen. And interestingly enough, it's a dynamic that goes on throughout the movie, and it sets up something that I think could be really, really intriguing for future Planet of the Apes movies. As far as other characters go, there are some that I do wish got a little bit more fleshed out than were given. Like, for example, Raka, this orangutan that's in this movie, I thought was going to play a much bigger role because the trailers kind of made it out like he was going to. And what I really like with Raka's character is he's kind of someone who was a former, I guess you could say, prodigy of Caesar's, if you will. Like, he was a follower of him, obeyed by his rules. And what I like with the dynamic between Raka and Noah is he's kind of explaining to him, it's like, oh, this is what Caesar taught us back in the day. These were the laws that he lived by. These were the rules that he set in stone for the apes. He was that very wise sort of mentor character to Noah, and then he just wasn't in the movie as much as I thought he was going to be. Also, Proximus Caesar is kind of on the polar end of that. Proximus Caesar, I thought, was a really, really good villain. Because again, what's really great about him is you understand him as a villain, you know, you kind of get where he's coming from, you see what he's trying to do. I mean, he's trying to ultimately just take control of the apes. He believes he can lead them into a better world. But like seeing in his side, he's kind of in the polar opposite of Raka. It's like, you know, he's heard, you know, Caesar's philosophy and like everything that came beforehand and the laws that he had. He, on the other hand, has tweaked them a bit. And as a result, he's kind of this feared leader who just runs things the way he believes it should be run. He will take part of Caesar's ideology and he will use it to his own advantage, and he will use it to manipulate the apes and manipulate them into doing what he believes is going to help him conquer. However, with Proximus Caesar, he doesn't really show up until halfway into the movie, so the whole time when you're hearing about this character and you're hearing about him and what he's doing with the apes and why he's such a big threat to be feared, you know, you're kind of sitting there anxiously like, okay, when are we going to finally see him? And the fact that it wasn't until halfway into the movie, that was a little bit of a bummer. However, I'll give the movie this. What they did with Raka and Proximus Caesar in kind of showing both sides of how people will use certain, you know, ideology or ideas or even religion to an extent, how they will just, you know, some will live and die by the book by it. Others, on the other hand, will just take it and manipulate it to their own advantage and their own doing. I did like seeing both sides of that spectrum because it's very, very much a parallel to what goes on in the real world. And that's kind of the point I think this movie's trying to stress with the apes. It's what Caesar alluded to in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. It's like, apes are not that different from human. Like, you quickly see just how alike apes and human truly are. And that's really the biggest credit I could give to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It once again causes you to think a little bit deeper. It's not just, you know, this monkey movie for the sake of a monkey movie. It actually does make you ponder a lot. It allows you to connect to these apes because it's able to make the apes seem a lot more human. So all in all, yeah, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I thought it was a great installment into this franchise. We get introduced to some really good characters I think we'll continue to get attached with as this series of movies goes along. Had a really good villain. I do think they could have fleshed out the human dynamic a little bit more. They do something with them that also has me questioning some things I imagine, you know, will get fleshed out more with more movies. The movie is a little bit slow at times. I do wish certain characters got a little bit more fleshed out, especially Proximus Caesar because he was a great villain. Visually, the movie is a spectacle to look at. I love that this movie makes you think just the way the other Planet of the Apes movies had you thinking. It's intense when it wanted to be, it's dramatic when it wanted to be, it's emotional when it wanted to be. In the end, I not only heard that this was going to be the start of a new Planet of the Apes trilogy, but apparently they're planning to make like 4 more Planet of the Apes movies following this one. Honestly, if they can keep it going like this, I'm cool with that. I would love this massive Planet of the Apes saga that's great. That eventually just brings it full circle home to that original Planet of the Apes movies from, what was it, the 60s? If you could wrap it up like that, that would be remarkably impressive. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video, and as always, don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.